It's what many people dream of, a day of pampering and relaxation. But for these men and women living with cancer, today was an opportunity to take some well-earned time out.
They come here, they enjoy the day, they are pampered, they are entertained, and they forget their worries.
And with plenty of relaxation techniques on offer, it was hard not to. From the toe to the top, there were foot massages, hand massages, facials, and a chance for the ladies to get all dolled up. Well, tell me, how's your day of pampering going?
Lovely, thank you. Yes.
And what have you had done and what's been the best so far?
Oh, I couldn't pick anything that's been the best. I've had so many massages, my nails painted, and now I'm having a facial.
Some took away a memento of the special day.
A form of relaxation that they can appreciate, and they are so thankful as they leave.
If not a little modest.
It feels wonderful. Yeah, lovely. Don't deserve it.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. One of Australia's premier artists and a Newcastle icon. 41 years after his death, 20 of Sir William Dobell's greatest works have been brought together at Cooks Hill Galleries.
They're extremely important because some 6 of them relate directly to important major paintings, and of the others you can trace many of his other paintings from his various eras.
The exhibition is set to showcase some of the most imaginative and creative works from the shy artist.
Dobell sketched all the time, and he didn't like to paint outdoors, so he sketched wherever he could, sketchbook, piece of paper, then take it back to his studio to paint.
The exhibition is even more significant given it's located right across the road from where William Dobell was born back in 1899, and that was just upstairs in this building. Also on display at the gallery, 110 artworks from private collections.
Well, the big names are Sidney Nolan with the Gallipoli painting, which is a major work and quite significant with the Anzac Day just passing. A couple of large Charles Blackman paintings.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's a massive thing to have a team to strive for and to be proud of, and I'll do the best I can to get that pathway for these younger players coming through.
He was once just another student at St John the Baptist, but today Luke Burgess was more like a rock star. Speaking about his rise through the ranks to the Wallabies, Burgess was grilled. Still, he hasn't forgotten his humble origins, despite recently signing with French club Toulouse. The 27-year-old will leave the Waratahs for the 3-year deal when the Rugby World Cup is over.
I'll have those friends for the rest of my life, and not being able to spend every day with them is really something that I'll miss, and it makes me really realise how much I cherish the time I do have.
That could be behind his impressive start to the Super 15 season, which certainly won't hurt his chances of taking Will Genya's halfback role in the Wallabies.
Everyone works for that role, and that's the idea of it all. You know, we've got to challenge each other and push the group, you know, as individuals.
Kevin Mettam, NBN News. At the recent National Championships, Liam Gander came so close. His 5th place in the 100-metre final wasn't enough for an Aussie call-up, but now the 23-year-old has been given a second chance.
Comes down to performance, like my coach said, and just got to ace everything over there, professionally. So that's what it's all about.
Tomorrow, he'll leave for Japan to meet with the 4x100 relay team in a qualifier for the World Championships. It'll be his last chance for a starting role, so he's been working hard.
Lately I've been training better than I compete, so my fitness is there. I try to take it up every time I show up to the track or in the gym, just to get that bit extra stronger.
Joining the 4x100 women's team is Laura Whaler, who's amazingly overcome a hip injury.
She's had a cortisone injection in that, and she's pain-free at the moment, so she's happy with that. She's been able to run, you know, quite freely at training, and yeah, she's keen to get over there and see what she can do now.
Kevin Mettam, NBN News.
Peter Kevin Smith sat stoically in the dock as sentencing submissions began. On the 17th of October last year, Smith tried to carjack a 28-year-old mother at Maitland Leagues Club while she was strapping her 18-month-old daughter into the vehicle. He threatened the woman with a large knife. 6 hours later, he sexually assaulted and tried to kill a 13-year-old girl at Jesmond Shopping Centre. Today, Crown Prosecutor Helen Wilson described how Smith laughed during the assault and stated the attack was a brutal and pitiless crime carried out on an entirely helpless child, and that the offender identified the victim as a target and waited until shops closed. Smith had previously pleaded guilty to armed robbery, wounding with intent to murder and aggravated sexual assault. However, the Crown maintained that despite this admission of guilt, there had been no evidence of remorse. Defence lawyer John Fitzgerald touched on Smith's criminal history and said, "By these offences, my client has no place in society," but noted that eventually he must have a place in society before making a claim of special circumstances. However, Judge Penelope Hock said to find special circumstances would be almost ridiculous, describing the case as a very complex matter and of the utmost seriousness. Smith will be sentenced in Sydney later this month. Madeline McKell, NBN News. 5 years after they lost their beloved Kirralie, Jeremy Murphy and Beverly Dunn finally had some measure of closure today.
It's not fair that someone this lovely and beautiful and kind death's gone unnoticed. So having this inquest, we're over the moon to given the privilege of having an inquest, and hopefully it helps somebody else, and that's what it's about.
In June 2006, Kirralie Murphy simply walked out of Maitland Hospital's mental health unit and headed to Talara train station, where she ended her life. Deputy State Coroner Elaine Truscott says various policies and procedures were not followed by nursing staff. In reading out her findings, Ms Truscott made 4 recommendations for changes to Hunter New England Health's absent without leave policy concerning voluntary mental health patients, a key point being that relevant authorities are contacted when a patient goes missing. It's hoped their implementation, along with measures already taken at Maitland Hospital, will prevent a similar incident.
I feel that we have waited so long. We have fought for it, and out of it all, the systems have changed, and that's all we were after, and we are very grateful.
Any changes are great, and the changes she's made are great, and I'm sure, more can come of it.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
This little bundle of joy is Armani.
She's absolutely perfect.
She was delivered on Easter Saturday by caesarean, the type of intervention the new midwifery service aims to reduce. Under group practice, first-time mums are assigned a midwife early in their pregnancy who'll be on call to deliver their baby, as well as provide ante and postnatal care.
Because we're caring for a woman for so long, we form a relationship with the woman, and it encourages that continuity of care.
The woman knows where that midwife's coming from, and the midwife knows what that woman's hopes are for her pregnancy.
A similar service operates at the John Hunter, but the Maitland Group practice has been modelled on the service at Gosford and Wyong hospitals. So far, there are 4 midwives on the team, but there's funding for another 3 to start soon.
We're hoping that with the numbers that the midwives take, that we can then start to develop the models further.
Armani's mum Nadia welcomes the service, saying given the option, she'd have chosen that model of care.
I actually had to have a couple of different midwives throughout, so I think to have that one-on-one with someone, it's more personal. I mean, it is the birth of a baby after all. It's a personal thing.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
From raw materials, they make magic. Creating for the community, all the while changing lives.
So it's all about working together, and a lot of them have these skills. They've done it at work. They've lost that as a result of being retired or made redundant, and this is a place where they can reinvest in that and take it further to benefit themselves and other people they work with.
Established 5 years ago, Windale has led the way for what's now a thriving men's shed movement. That success recognised today in a funding pledge from the federal government.
They've received in excess of $376,000 funding to continue their wonderful programs that they run through here. It's for 3 years.
To the shed movement in the area for the Hunter Valley Cluster Group, it's very big.
The money will allow the Shed members to continue and also develop programs as well as mentor other groups. There's been a spike in interest since last month's Men's Shed Expo in Maitland. Just today, Windale welcomed 10 new members. New blood to continue this emerging tradition.
Great for the guys that come, great for the community.
It was sometimes hard to figure out who was supporting who, but with Jets keeper Ben Kennedy taking a back seat, the fans sided with a not-for-profit organisation called Endeavour. It provides a range of services for people living with a disability, and today it showed them the game of football. Just about everyone seized the opportunity.
The Endeavour team gave us a run for the money, and I think they ended up winning about 5-2, so lucky we're only early in pre-season.
There's been kids that have been less fortunate, and you see them running around here having the time of their life, and when I'm down, these are the times I reflect on.
Off contract at the end of the coming season, Tarek Elrich wants to produce more of those special moments.
We're just looking forward to the start of the season. It's that far away, and to win a title with the boys is what I want to do. I've only got one more year left, and hopefully it's a good one.
Kiwi international Jeremy Brocky just wants to stay healthy and get back to this sort of form.
It's up to myself to look after my body and make sure I do the right things on and off the field, and this is a big year for me to really take it to another level.
Kevin Metham, NBN News. The moment in question. Last night, the league judiciary found South Kyle Morton guilty of spitting. His target, former Newcastle knight Brendan Hallad, was shocked on game day and still is.
Yes, it was, mate, to be honest. I've spoken to players that played in the 70s and 80s, like tough eras like that, and they said that wouldn't have went on their day. And, I say it was a lot tougher game then, so I was very, very surprised.
It all started with a spear tackle in the final minutes. Tensions boiled over, then Morton can be seen rubbing his bloody nose on Hallad. Last night the judiciary handed the hooker a 6-match ban.
A bit disappointing the outcome overall, bodily fluids and blood going to someone else, high risk of disease and all that, and just a pretty filthy act, I think, a bit low.
Morton and South Newcastle have refused to comment, so too Newcastle Rugby League officials.
They're trying to get that sort of thing out of the game, like a striking charge now, from what I understand, is about only 4 weeks, and a spitting or, what happened to me, 6 weeks, I just don't think that's good enough, and I think most people will agree.
Kevin Metham, NBN News.
It's one of Newcastle's hottest topics, and last night hundreds crammed into City Hall to have their say about the mosque proposed for Elermore Vale. Colourful opinions were expressed, but in the end the Joint Regional Planning Panel delayed making any decision about the project, citing discrepancies about the number of cars expected to travel to the site.
The traffic counts that were provided by the applicant said that 3 people were going to be in every car that went to the mosque, but some peer review studies have shown that there's only going to be 1.5 people on average in the car.
The panel is concerned that could blow out the number of car spaces needed, potentially creating traffic and noise problems. It's now carrying out yet another study.
It's going to be quite extensive. I believe it's going to take at least 2 to 3 months.
Many residents were outraged.
There were people who felt a decision could have been made, should have been made. To be honest, they weren't aware of all the additional material that we were submitting last night.
The Ellamore Vale Cares Group last night also raised concerns about other issues, such as any removal of trees from this block of land where the proposed mosque would be built. But not everyone was upset.
We obviously were hoping for a positive outcome, but we're happy with the outcome, and it's just a matter of waiting now.
Madeline McKell, NBN News. According to the Hunter Valley Research Foundation, the region's economy slowed over the first 4 months of 2011.
And we can see that from employment data, the labour market for a start. Total employment of people employed in the region has fallen by about 15,000 people.
That's seen our unemployment rate rise to 5.1%. Higher interest rates and the skyrocketing Aussie dollar are being blamed. In the past 18 months, the Reserve Bank has lifted interest rates by 1.75%. That's hit the local construction industry, with the number of new homes being built on the decline. It's also hurt the retail sector, with household consumption down.
Households are being a bit more cautious about the economic outlook. They're a bit more wary, and that's part of the equation in terms of them paying off their debts and so on, and being a bit more conservative about going out and spending money.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
This morning, it was the Faculty of Science and IT farewelling its students with a piece of paper that costs thousands. It may take years, but for many, it's worth the wait.
It feels amazing. It's a really good experience. Just knowing all that hard work's kind of amounting to something.
You meet such great people here, and they're a really good support while you're studying, and they're friends for life.
And a bit of fatherly advice is also crucial ahead of entering the real world.
Most that are looking for work are finding it, and hopefully that'll be the case as we move into the workforce.
But today wasn't all about students. Veteran journalist and educator Paul Scott was honoured with the Vice-Chancellor's Award for Teaching and Excellence.
Oh, it's a terrific honour to receive an award for teaching from your peers and fellow students. It's a great day.
He joins other honoured teachers at the university, such as Deadly Award winner Dr. Peter O'Mara. He'll speak tomorrow to fellow early school leavers turned university graduates.
I went to Cessnock High and only went to Year 10, so the Open Foundation course was an opportunity for someone like myself to start to enter university to develop a career and a pathway in life.
Kevin Messam, NBN News.
It's something of a trip down memory lane, an exhibition celebrating one of the most important chapters in Newcastle's history.
It's about remembering the State Dockyard, and the State Dockyard was one of Newcastle's biggest employers from the war times, Second World War, up until 1987.
The dockyard employed thousands during its heyday and even attracted royalty. It also helped keep the country safe.
Some of the most important ships in the world were launched here. During World War II, it was vital for ship repairs for our Navy.
The exhibition opens at the Maritime Centre tonight and runs until the end of May.
It's a reminiscing exhibition. It's not all about ships tonight. It's more about the people that made the dockyard special.
Also in Newcastle, the Speaking in Colour exhibition is on display at the Regional Art Gallery. It showcases work from some of the country's leading Indigenous artists.
There's 53 works in the entire exhibition. There's 27 in the Indaria suite there, and there's a couple of works as well from artists who are working at Nurajuta at the moment there.
Today, two of those artists were on hand to share their experiences with art lovers. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. Each year, around 1,500 Australians are diagnosed with brain cancer. It's a debilitating disease which strikes quickly and often with devastating results.
The changes to function, to cognitive function, to physical function are dramatic and sometimes quite profound in a short space of time.
They mightn't be able to work, they mightn't be able to drive, they mightn't have the capacity to socialise, and they lose faculties very quickly in many cases.
Kay Duffy was diagnosed with a brain tumour back in 2000.
It's a very scary journey. I think anything that affects our hearts or our brains really touches a nerve with people, and you wonder just how you'll come through it.
Helping shed light on the disease is the aim of the National Brain Cancer Awareness Week, which begins on Monday. It's also attempting to rally support for more resources.
There's not much money given to research in brain tumours because from time of diagnosis to time of death sometimes can be incredibly short.
Ms Duffy, for one, would like to see more cancer nurses employed.
Good rehabilitation programs are also badly needed. Special nursing home placements, because for some people the effect is so devastating that they move from a productive life to a greatly impaired life.
For more information on brain cancer support groups, just head to our website. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Akuyuate already possesses one of the brightest smiles in the NRL, and it's been on show all week as he enjoys the build-up to his first representative clash. Country's coach believes the winger is one of the game's new characters.
He's very talented and still got a lot to learn. It's certainly exciting when he's got the footy in his hands.
His captain is also singing his praises.
Uate's really impressed me this week, but just the speed and the power of that guy, it's pretty impressive.
Despite calls for City's Mitchell Pearce to be retained at halfback for New South Wales, Laurie Daly is firmly in Jared Mullen's corner, believing the Knights' number 7 deserves a shot.
Mullows now has had 6 or 7 years there and he's playing his best football, so that'll continue and he'll only get better, and that's probably the reason why he's Origin material.
Meanwhile, in Newcastle Rugby League, the grand final replay between Cessnock and Maitland will kick off round 4 tomorrow afternoon, as the Goannas look to maintain their unbeaten start to the season. On Sunday, the Blues will be looking for their first win when they play host to Central. Greens coach Stacey Sykes has only been in the top job a few months, but the financial planner already has his side right on the money. Merriweather has started the season in sensational style, but injuries to key players could make their trip to Nelson Bay a little tougher.
Dan Lewinsky's out and Mark Wade's out. So we're looking at players in second grade currently, so the roster in seconds is extremely strong.
In some good news, try-scoring machine Daniel Spiteri will begin his season in third grade for Merriweather tomorrow afternoon. In other games, the Waratahs will host Wanderers and Uni will travel to Passmore Oval to face Hamilton. No games in the NBN State League this weekend. Instead, clubs will take part in round 3 of the Northern New South Wales Knockout Cup. Coming off a big win, Olympic will take on the struggling Edgeworth Eagles. And on track, it's a huge weekend for Curry's Chad Reed as he rides into Las Vegas for the final event of the American Supercross Series. Reed needs to win and hope that current ratings leader Ryan Villapoto finishes 6th or worse to have any chance of winning a 3rd AMA title.
Well, this week is Heart Week, and the theme this year is Go Red for Women. So we are promoting awareness of heart disease as the #1 killer of Australian women.
Scone enjoyed a picture-perfect day for what's one of the Upper Hunter's biggest annual events. Thousands rolled up for the Horse Festival street parade, from the horse-drawn to the horse drawings. Everyone wanted in on the action, some going to great lengths to take part. Just about every man and his dog had a mount, and aside from the equine kind, there was plenty of other horsepower on show. The festival's been running for more than 30 years in celebration of Scone's status as the horse capital of Australia.
So Michael, you've been here since the very first Scone Horse Festival. How has it changed over the years?
Well, it's changed in the number of floats that you have in the festival, but I think mainly it's changed in the number of horses and the organisations that are represented there.
This year there's a strong focus on schools, while multiple marching bands added that musical touch. Heavy machinery also made an appearance in recognition of the region's other big earner.
We've seen an increase in the industry with the coal industry, so hence we've seen a number of the other machinery type organisations enter the parade.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
Hamilton started without several big names, but it took a mistake from defender Greg Anderson before Joshua Spark put Edgeworth in front. Minutes later, he blew a chance to make it 2. After the break, another deflected shot left Olympic keeper Scott McCarter stranded, as Spark finally grabbed a double. The Eagles were flying and should have wrapped it up, but their shots continued to sail wide. With time running out, Jared Ross made a breakthrough to give Olympic some hope. Just a few minutes later, he brought Hamilton level. With the scores tied, it was down to penalties for the knockout blow. Smith would prove to be the hero for Edgy. His save sending the Eagles into the next round.
Although Uwate was mostly, he would have been mostly the standout, I suppose. He just, he was brilliant, I thought.
I wouldn't necessarily say he's the front runner. I think Jared Mullen's performance was very good.
It looked...
Happy Mother's Day.
I hope you got it. We're not doing it twice.
and sounded...
Was it a hard choice?
Purple and yellow flowers.
a lot like Mother's Day.
I think it's a very important day that we recognise what all the mums do, all the hard work they put in.
And today, there was more than one special delivery. This Newcastle mum got the best present ever.
I kept saying that the only thing I wanted for Mother's Day is my baby out, and I got it, so pretty happy.
Isaac, the region's first baby, delivered at 2 this morning.
No sleep, no sleep. He's a feeder, and so thank God he's finally asleep.
But not everyone got to rest on their special day.
It's a little bit hard sometimes to leave your family at home, but we've got to be here for our patients.
And of course, we all appreciate that effort.
But who are they for?
Grandma?
For Grandma. What about Mum?
After all,
mums make the world go round, really.
Be kind to your mother.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Coming off a heartbreaking loss to local rivals Maitland, the Hunters needed a confidence-boosting start against Bankstown, and they got it thanks to Ryan Klein. His 8 first-quarter points gave Newcastle a slender lead. Despite their 2-4 record, the Bruins weren't lying down on the job. Greg Barnes kept them close. Adam Melmoth was happy to put his body on the line for the cause, and despite some smooth shooting from John Martin, the Hunters weren't running away with the game. In the women's, new American import Brittany Davis was taking no prisoners in her first game since arriving in Newcastle midweek. Davis saw limited game time but showed glimpses of her potential. After dropping in 31 against the Mustangs, WNBL star Katie Ray Ebzery wasn't quite as prolific against Bankstown. Her 11 points proved to be the Hunters' best. Despite a late surge from the home side, the defending champions proved too strong.
Every morning, Dave Buchanan goes on patrol, and far too often he finds his hard work ripped apart.
This green here, this is the third time this has sort of happened to this green in the past 6 years, so it's starting to get beyond a joke.
Early on Sunday, the club was vandalised for the third time in a month. Among the damage, fences, signs and sprinklers. Some chairs were dumped in water, while others were even sawn in two.
Oh, mate, I think sometimes just for fun, they don't care. They don't understand what golf is about. They just think grass grows and, all you do is mow it, but there's a lot more to it than that.
On Wednesday, the 11th hole was cut open with a knife. A few weeks earlier, a stolen four-wheel drive made its way onto the 13th. Vandals performed burnouts before torching the vehicle. General Manager Greg Pearce has lost count of the number of vandalism attacks.
Well, I have actually, and as I said, I've only been here since about January, so I think it's something that the community needs to be aware of. I mean, people must know of people who are doing this.
But there's no easy solution.
Without completely fencing the club and the whole surrounds, which is an impossibility really, cost-wise, I don't know how you can stop them from coming in.
Extra security will be brought in and repairs will go on. Kev Lemessam, NBN News.
The General Manager's working on a solution that's certain to push buttons.
The council has money. In order to do what the plan requires, the council needs more.
30 years worth, or $139 million for this troubled council to get Newcastle back on track. Tonight, it'll throw open the doors to City Hall, asking how much residents are prepared to pay.
And I'd say to people, don't hold back. Tell us what you really think.
It's no secret the city's falling down around us, and Council is giving ratepayers 4 options. 1, borrow more money. 2, sell off some underutilised assets. 3, ask the government for a helping hand. Or 4, raise rates by 5%. But some reckon that's pushing the envelope.
I think the council is very wasteful, and I think that they need a good kick up the backside.
They're already hitting us in the pocket. Why try and hit us even more?
But the GM promises the money will be spent getting our coastline on the road to recovery, smashing through barriers in the West End and saving the CBD before time runs out.
There's options out there that you must first look at before you start going borrowing and putting up rate rises.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
First things first, the boss breaks the ice with his new team.
The feeling that I have when I walk around is very, very positive.
And starts working through some HR issues.
A healthy workforce will then flow on so I can look after the people of Newcastle.
Next job for the former region operations manager is getting back to the basics of policing.
Rapidly responding to calls for service from members of the community, making sure that we bail check people, certainly just interacting with people on the streets.
But Superintendent Grolton says achieving any of that will be difficult without more help.
My primary goal is to increase the workforce here at Newcastle, then those crime rates are likely to come down even further.
Something he's got a head start on, with probationary constables Brenda Smith and Aaron Cook reporting for their first shift today.
It's been a long haul at the college. Been down there for 4 months away from my family, and it's nice to start work.
Everybody's been great. A lot of information to take on board.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Lifeline's financial counsellors have never been more in demand.
They've seen a great increase in their numbers, and I think there are a lot of people struggling out there, and we want to be able to continue to help them.
Ironically, as they try to get clients on track, the charity itself is facing uncertain financial times. In the coming weeks, Lifeline Newcastle and Hunter will find out if funding will be continued for financial counselling, as well as its respected suicide prevention service.
And I understand that there has to be some, certainly some accountability around these grant funds because it's public money and we need to show that we spend it well.
Kate Chapman is hopeful the state and federal governments will continue to commit, but says the need for charities to constantly reapply for funding is a perpetual problem.
It also is very difficult for the funded bodies to then ensure continuity of employment for their employees and to plan ahead.
Lifeline and other charities are lobbying for changes to the way money is administered to them, with greater scope for ongoing grants.
In season 2011, there's never a dull moment at the Knights, as speculation grows that Cade Snowden will sign with Newcastle as early as this week. Former club legend Danny Badiris is also reportedly on the Knights' radar.
It's got to work out best for the club and obviously best with Isaac De Gois and other players who have got contracted here, and obviously incoming coach Wayne Brennan will have some sort of say into what happens there.
De Gois has been in negotiations to re-sign since before the Tinkler Group takeover. Isaac, Bo Henry and Neville Costigan are all hoping to return from injury to face the Warriors this weekend.
Obviously Isaac is a big part of the puzzle considering Kurt will be out and won't be able to play dummy half for us. And we definitely need a number 6, whether that's Bo Henry or Tyrone Roberts at this stage. We'll sort that out later in the week.
Costigan has endured a tough stint on the sideline since breaking his arm in round 1.
Footy's about ups and downs, and this year's definitely been down so far for me, and I'm just looking forward to getting back on the paddock.
Meanwhile, the Knights' SG Ball Grand Final winning side will play Brisbane Norths next Saturday for the right to be called Australia's best under-18 side. The Knights led the season decider by 4 in the dying seconds before Kurt Mann tried to kill the game off by kicking the ball dead, inadvertently setting up a try for the Bulldogs. Fortunately, Canterbury missed the conversion, and in Golden Point, Newcastle winger Lachlan Shippard kicked a 40-metre field goal to hand the Knights the trophy. Chad Reed needed to win in Las Vegas and hoped Ryan Villapoto would finish lower than 6th, but the American was out to spoil the party.
I think this last race just lived up to the hype of the whole season, just people fast, people crashing. Ryan, he's headed in the championship, and all I could do was try to win the race.
Having created his team from scratch in the off-season, finishing second was a massive effort.
Win or lose, I learned a lot, and we found ourselves in a position to, potentially win a championship, and that's, as a team owner, that's the dream, that's the goal.
Still on 2 wheels, and the Hunters Brock Parks has slipped to 3rd in the World Supersport Series after finishing 4th in Portugal overnight. The race was filled with the usual thrills and spills. Parks avoided the danger but couldn't find his way onto the podium.
3 weeks after Trisha Cobbinow was reported missing, police made the grim discovery of her badly decomposed body in a car boot. Residents say the white sedan had been parked in Granger Street at Lambton for weeks.
We're relatively comfortable with the fact that we've located Trisha, yes. We're waiting for a 100% confirmation by way of either dental records or DNA.
Police allege Marcus John Lee killed the 27-year-old at an Islington address sometime between 3:30 and 5:30am on the 17th of April. They also maintained the pair, who were former lovers, argued before Ms Cobbinow's death.
She's known to the alleged perpetrator, and we believe that she's gone back to the site with the perpetrator.
31-year-old Lee handed himself into Newcastle Police yesterday afternoon.
As a result of that, we located the body in the vehicle.
Lee was excused from appearing at Newcastle Local Court today. There was no bail application and it was formally refused. The case is due back in court on the 6th of July. On her Facebook page, Ms Cobbinow described herself as a mother of 3 adorable children who liked movies and walks along the beach. A tribute left on NBN's website today described her as a nice girl who kept to herself. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
We've heard the warnings. It'll be a dour, Conservative budget, but that hasn't stopped the Business Chamber from compiling a wish list. The priorities: funding for the shovel-ready Glendale interchange, new law courts for Newcastle and the CBD University campus.
Given the Hunter region is an economic powerhouse for the nation through the resources sector, we're very keen to see some commitments towards funding of some studies and some improvements in infrastructure throughout the Hunter region.
It's hoped money will also flow back to the coalfields, including $2 million towards a much-needed rail overpass at Scone. As for welfare, Samaritan's CEO Seth Shevels has criticised the Gillard government's tough love stance, saying it isn't going to help long-term unemployed and people with a disability find work. He says paid work experience subsidised by the government is the answer, improving future prospects and self-esteem.
People need work experience paid at the minimum wage in real jobs that are going to go somewhere.
And he believes a lack of childcare is a glaring obstacle to the government's proposal to take the parenting allowance away from teenage mums who don't return to school when their baby turns 1.
This idea of we're going to punish you and take away your money, that's ridiculous, because we're not going to allow children to go hungry.
He thinks the Dale program at Waratah is a better alternative and could be duplicated across the country. There, volunteers take care of babies in a creche, allowing young mums to concentrate on their studies. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
You can't talk about carbon emissions and climate tax and all these things and appoint a climate change minister and just blatantly ignore all the new coal projects that have been approved.
Perched high on the hill overlooking Newcastle Beach and next to Mirvac's Royal development, it's the final site along the strip to be transformed. Today, NBN was invited in for a look at the spectacular views to the harbour and Stockton, as well as Newcastle Beach and beyond. The 99-apartment, 10-storey block has reached lock-up stage. The roof's on and the internal fit-out is well underway.
Completion will be in July, end of July and this year. And then they'll be notified when they settle the contracts and they'll be moving in from August.
Meaning by the seaside, Arvia is the brainchild of Newcastle developer Keith Stronach, who's also behind Merryweather's Surf House and the Newcastle Bowling Club redevelopment. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
20 tonnes of these degraded and dangerous old oyster leases have been pulled out of Port Stephens waterways. Bruce Redmayne and 2 other Lemon Tree Passage-based oyster farmers took on the enormous job.
Well, we've cleaned up 26 hectares of derelict leases that have been sitting around looking horrible since about the late 80s.
The dirty and backbreaking work saw them trawling through the water at all hours over the last 6 weeks. The timber leases were not only unsightly, they were also polluting the waterway.
So they treated it with tar and some of it cyanide, CCA I think is cyanide based. So there's some pretty horrible things in there.
13 oyster farms operate along the aptly named Oyster Farm Road. Last year alone they sold $3.5 million worth, or 500,000 dozen oysters. With the old leases now gone, much of the estuary has been reopened for public use and tourism. And with fewer structures about, there's more of a chance oysters will grow exactly where these farmers want them to.
It's a tremendous harbour for growing oysters, this. Seems very rich and does a very nice product if it's given half a chance.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
In the floods, when they were trying to get by, their shoes got taken away from them, and we basically donated shoes and books to them so they can get educated too.
It's the first major player poaching since the takeover by Nathan Tinkler, Cronulla prop and Australian representative Cade Snowden.
It's the first current international that's been signed by the Knights in its history, and being a local boy, it's even better.
The former Knight and Newcastle junior was on the verge of re-signing with the Sharks back in February. Controversially, he pulled out at the last minute after a phone conversation with Tinkler.
Look, I didn't make an offer. I just said, what's your hurry, the Knights we're going through a transition period. What are you gaining by signing up now as opposed to June? So, I didn't ring up and say, I'll give you $1 million tomorrow if you sign or anything silly like that. I think there's a few Sydney journos that are Cronulla fans that had the knives out over that.
Today, Rick Stone admitted he's been chasing Snowden since last year.
Look, it's a massive boost. Myself and Keith made Cade an offer probably in November. A few things fell that weren't exactly in our favour as a club to sort of secure Cade, obviously, in the new year.
But with new ownership and Supercoach Wayne Bennett on his way, the offer became more attractive for the 24-year-old. The Sharks were desperate to keep him, but the Knights deny any sort of bidding war.
He wants to be home, he wants to play for the Knights. So to be honest, the monetary side of the discussions was not the issue at all.
He's also tipped to return to the Blues after debuting in Origin 3 last year. Kevin Messam, NBN News.